Welcome to Motive and Malice, where we get into the cases that just don't add up. And tonight, tonight we are diving into one of Japan's most baffling and honestly theatrical crime sprees ever. For 17 long months, this phantom group of criminals terrorized the entire country with kidnappings, poisonings, and a whole flood of taunting letters, all while playing this high-stakes game of cat and mouse with the police. They called themselves the Monster with 21 Faces.
On the screen right now is their final chilling message. It just reads, "It's fun to lead a bad man's life." And with those words, the most notorious criminals in modern Japanese history basically announced they were retiring. And then they just vanished, without a trace, leaving behind this legacy of fear, and a mystery that people are still talking about today. So, let's get into how this whole insane story began.
You know, the first act of this whole national drama wasn't some threatening letter or a quiet crime. No, it was a shocking, brazen, and frankly, incredibly bizarre kidnapping that sounds like something straight out of a movie.
Okay, so picture this. It's the night of March 18th, 1984. Two armed, masked men just burst into the home of Katsuhisa Ezaki. Now, this isn't just anybody. He's the president of the huge candy company Ezaki Glico. They find him in his bathroom, of all places, and abduct him while he's still naked. They drag him off to a warehouse and demand this absolutely staggering ransom, 1 billion yen and 100 kilograms of gold. But then, just 3 days later, in this incredible twist, Ezaki manages to escape all on his own.
So you'd think the story would end right there, right? The victim makes a daring escape, the bad guys are on the run, case closed. But for these criminals, this was just the beginning. Ezaki's freedom didn't stop their campaign. It ignited a 17-month firestorm of psychological warfare against Japan's biggest food companies.
And this is when they gave themselves a name. The group started sending out these letters signed, "The Monster was 21 Faces." And that's a direct reference to a shape-shifting villain from these popular detective novels by Edogawa Rampo, who's basically Japan's master of mystery. So you see, this wasn't just crime for them, it was theater. They were casting themselves as the master villain.
In one of their first public threats, sent right to the newspapers on May 10th, they claimed to have laced Glico candies with potassium cyanide. And the letter, which you can see on the screen, just drips with contempt for the police, saying, "To the poor policeman, eat Glico and end up in the grave." And just like that, a nationwide panic began.
The threat was absolutely devastating. Glico had no choice. They had to pull every single one of their products from store shelves across the entire country. The result? A catastrophic loss of over $21 million. I mean, that's way more than the original ransom they asked for.
And there was a very real human cost to all this. That financial hit forced Glico to lay off 450 part-time workers. So the monster's actions weren't just hitting some faceless corporation. They were ruining the lives of hundreds of everyday people.
And you might be wondering, was this all just a bluff? Absolutely not. After they turned their attention to another company, Morinaga, police discovered 21 actual packages of poison candy sitting on store shelves. And in this really bizarre twist, the criminals had helpfully labeled each box with a sticker that said, "Danger, contains toxins." It's like they wanted the terror, but not necessarily the mass casualties. It's so strange.
So with the threats now terrifyingly real, the police investigation just ramped up into this massive operation. And in this desperate chase, they had a few frustratingly close calls with a man who had pretty much become the public face of the monster.
Their first real visual clue was this grainy security footage. It showed a man in a Yomiuri Giants baseball cap, that's a really popular team, calmly placing a box of Glico chocolate on a store shelf right in the middle of all the panic. For a while, he was known only as the Videotaped Man. But a much more vivid suspect popped up during a totally botched ransom drop with another company. An undercover officer noticed this guy on a train platform watching him, really intently. And that man would soon earn a nickname that everyone in Japan would come to know. Investigators put together a composite sketch based on what the officer saw. You can see the description here. A large, well-built guy, short permed hair. But the one detail that stuck, the one that everyone remembered, was his gaze. The officer said the man had eyes like those of a fox. And that image of the fox-eyed man became absolutely iconic. And get this, they actually had him. I mean, they were right there. An investigator on a train, ready for the ransom drop, spots the fox-eyed man. Multiple officers start tailing him as he moves from train to train, but in this just stunning failure of police work, the suspect simply slips away and vanishes right into the crowd.
While the investigation dragged on for over a year, the police were constantly being outsmarted, the public was absolutely terrified, and the pressure on law enforcement was becoming just unbearable. And all of that strain was about to lead to the case's most tragic and shocking turning point.
In August of 1985, the Shiga Prefecture Police Superintendent, a man named Yamamoto, was just overwhelmed. He was the man who had overseen that failed attempt to catch the fox-eyed man. In a culture where professional failure can bring this profound personal shame, he saw only one way out. He walked into his backyard, doused himself in kerosene, and took his own life.
The monster's response to this was just as chilling as it was bizarre. 5 days after the superintendent's death, they sent their final letter. In it, they mockingly praised Yamamoto, writing that he died like a man, and announced that, as a form of condolence, they were ending their campaign of terror. Can you even imagine?
And with that, they were gone. The letters stopped, the threats ended, but the mystery, it was far from over. It just transformed into one of the most famous and debated cold cases in Japanese history.
So who were they? All that's left are theories. Was it the Yakuza, Japan's notorious organized crime syndicate? Maybe a really sophisticated scheme to play the stock market? Or was it just a personal vendetta? The police even zeroed in on a guy named Manabu Miyazaki, who was the son of a Yakuza boss and actually looked a lot like the Fox-Eyed Man sketch. But he had rock-solid alibis. To this day, not a single one of these theories has ever been proven.
And here's the final nail in the coffin for this case. By the year 2000, the statute of limitations had run out on all the crimes committed by the monster with 21 faces. That means that even if someone walked into a police station tomorrow with irrefutable proof that they were behind it all, nothing could be done. They could never be prosecuted. The case is legally and permanently closed.
Which leaves us right back where we started, with that one huge question. For 17 months, this group held an entire country hostage with their brains and their sheer audacity, and then they just walked away. After 40 years, who was the monster with 21 faces? Was it a professional criminal outfit, a group of stock market manipulators, or something else entirely? I really want to know what you think. Let me know your theories down in the comments.